What if the US Air Force fought in World War I? France. September 1918. The Western Front has been bleeding for 4 years. 4 years of mud, wire, and men dying by the hundreds of thousands for 100 meters of shattered ground. The Meuse-Argonne offensive is about to begin, the largest military operation in American history. 120,000 soldiers will die before it ends. But tonight, something impossible happens. Not one modern fighter. Not one borrowed jet from a movie script. The entire United States Air Force, every aircraft, every pilot, every weapon system in its 21st century inventory, materializes over France. And it is angry. Private Heinrich Bauer, 3rd Bavarian Infantry Regiment, had survived 2 years on the Western Front. He had survived artillery, gas, and the endless grinding cold of winter trenches. He had never once looked up at the sky and felt afraid of it. The sky was where German observation planes circled, lazy and distant, and where the occasional Allied biplane buzzed past before being shot down. The sky was nothing. Then the sound arrived. It had no name in any language he knew. It was not thunder. It was not artillery. It was a pressure. Low, continuous, everywhere at once, that made the fillings in his teeth vibrate. Heinrich looked up, and for the rest of his life, the 4 seconds that followed would be the only thing he ever refused to talk about. What the United States Air Force brings to 1918 is not merely more powerful weapons. It brings an entirely different conception of war. In 1918, the most advanced fighter in the sky, the German Fokker D.VIIs, reaches 116 miles per hour. It carries 2 machine guns with less than 1,000 rounds combined. Its operational ceiling is 22,000 feet, and its pilots navigate by landmarks and instinct. An F-22 Raptor cruises at 1,500 miles per hour. It carries 6 AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles with a kill range of over 100 miles. Beyond visual range, beyond any possible counter. Its radar detects targets at over 150 miles. The pilot never has to see what he kills. The engagement is over before the enemy knows it has started. But the F-22 is only the beginning. The United States Air Force in 2026 operates over 5,000 aircraft. F-35 Lightning IIs, stealthy, precise, carrying smart bombs that can thread through a window at 20 miles. B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, invisible to radar, each carrying 8,500-pound bombs or 16 2,000-pound precision-guided munitions in a single pass. A C-130 gunships circling over a target for hours, able to destroy anything that moves with 105mm howitzer fire from the sky. MQ-9 Reaper drones, unmanned, tireless, watching every road and trench and supply depot without rest. And underneath all of it, GPS satellite targeting, encrypted communications, real-time battlefield intelligence, and a command structure that can coordinate simultaneous strikes across a front 300 miles wide. The German military in 1918 has no radar, no proximity fuses, no surface-to-air missiles, no electronics of any kind capable of detecting, tracking, or engaging a stealth aircraft. Their anti-aircraft weapons, the 93, the flak cannons, are manually aimed at targets they can see. You cannot shoot at what you cannot see. You cannot hide from something that can see through darkness, smoke, and cloud cover alike. The first 24 hours. 6 F-22 Raptors sweep the entire German Air Force from the sky in under 3 hours. Not in dogfights. There are no dogfights. The German aircraft, Fokker D.VIIs, Albatros D.VIIs observation planes, are detected on radar at over 100 miles. The AIM-120 missiles arrive before any German pilot hears the launch tone. 180 German aircraft cease to exist before a single American pilot enters visual range. The German Air Service, which has spent 4 years building tactical air power over the Western Front, is gone by noon. Then the B-2s arrive. 2 aircraft, 2 Spirit bombers, flying at 40,000 feet. Invisible, silent at that altitude, unreachable. Each carries 16 2,000-pound Joint Direct Attack Munitions, GPS, guided to within 10 feet of their targets. The first aircraft drops on the German rail network, the arteries through which every shell, every soldier, every ton of food and fuel flows to the Western Front, Liège, Namur, Metz, the junction at Sedan. Precision strikes delivered in minutes that would take conventional artillery days of bombardment to achieve. By nightfall, the German supply network east of the Rhine is destroyed. The second B-2 strikes the headquarters of Heeresgruppe Kronprinz, Crown Prince Wilhelm's army group. Communications, command centers. The physical infrastructure through which 1.5 million German soldiers receive their orders. An army without orders is not an army. It is a crowd. September 14th, 600 hours. The AC-13 O gunships begin their work. An AC-13 O Spectre is a flying artillery platform. It circles a target at 10,000 feet, slow, deliberate, and fires continuously with a 105mm howitzer, a 40mm Bofors cannon, and a 25mm Gatling gun. It can loiter over a battlefield for 8 hours. It can see in darkness through thermal imaging. It can destroy every piece of equipment in a 1-mile radius without moving from its orbit. There are 37 AC-130s in the modern US Air Force inventory. They begin with the German artillery, the gun lines that have made advance across no man's land impossible for 4 years. The massive guns, the Krupp howitzers, the heavy batteries that have killed millions of Allied soldiers. Thermal imaging finds them through smoke and darkness. The 105mm rounds find them with precision that the German gunners cannot comprehend. By mid-morning, the German artillery on a 60-kilometre front has been reduced to scrap. Then the AC-130s turn to the trench lines themselves. What happens next is not a battle. It is not even a contest. It is the methodical, systematic destruction of a military infrastructure that has no counter, no escape, and no way to communicate with the outside world because its communication lines no longer exist. MQ-9 Reaper drones map every German position, every machine gun nest, every headquarters bunker, every ammunition depot, and transmit the coordinates in real time. F-35s deliver 500-pound small-diameter bombs with surgical accuracy. The German soldiers in their trenches, the men who have survived 4 years of the most brutal fighting in human history, look up at an empty, silent sky and watch their world come apart. Not from artillery they can hear building, not from an attack they can brace for, from nothing, from silence, and then from fire, appearing from nowhere, guided by intelligence they have no concept of. Major Hermann Göring, future commander of the Luftwaffe, at this moment the most accomplished German fighter ace, still alive after the death of Richthofen, lands his Fokker D.VIIs for the last time at noon on September 15th. His mechanics are standing in silence. No one is working. Every man is staring south, at a horizon that has been burning for 36 hours. Göring climbs out of the cockpit. He is 35 years old. He has 62 aerial victories. He has flown through things that would break most men. And when he looks at the faces of his ground crew, he understands, immediately, completely, without a word being spoken, that the thing in the sky is not a weapon of war. It is an ending. He asks one question. How many do they have? No one answers, because no one knows. Because in 1918, the concept of 5,000 aircraft does not exist as a military category. It exists as a number that has no meaning. By September 17th, 72 hours after the first F-22s swept the sky clean, the German Western Front has ceased to function as a military entity. Not because the German soldiers have been killed. The precision strike campaign has been designed, with 21st century doctrine, to destroy capability rather than cause mass casualties where possible. Infrastructure, supply, command, communication. The nervous system of a modern, by 1918 standards, military force. An army that cannot receive orders, cannot receive ammunition, cannot receive food, and cannot move along roads that have been created by JDAM strikes is an army that has already lost, regardless of how many rifles it holds. The German High Command, Hindenburg and Ludendorff meet in a shattered operations room in Spa, Belgium. The maps on the table are useless. The communication lines are dead. The reports coming in, when anything comes in at all, describe things that field commanders have no words for. Aircraft that fire from beyond the visible horizon. Bombs that fall from an empty sky. Positions that are destroyed with precision no artillery in history has ever demonstrated. Ludendorff, the architect of the German war machine, a man who has never in his military career encountered a problem that could not be solved by will and firepower, looks at the maps for a long time. Then he folds them. The armistice that ends the First World War is signed, in our history, on November 11th, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, after 4 years and 3 months of industrialized slaughter that killed 17 million human beings. In this version of history, the German request for ceasefire terms reaches Allied command on September 19th, 1918. 5 days. The Western Front, the killing ground that defined a generation, that swallowed the flower of an entire civilization, that turned the countryside of France and Belgium into a graveyard that still gives up bones, ends in 5 days. Not because the United States Air Force is invincible. It is not. Fuel runs out. Ordnance is finite. The AC-130s can only loiter so long. The B-2s can only carry so many bombs. The system has limits. But those limits are so far beyond anything 1918 Germany can reach, test, or even imagine, that the gap between them is not a tactical problem. It is a category error. The German army in 1918 is the finest military force the 19th century ever built. Disciplined, innovative, tactically brilliant, the best version of what human beings could achieve with the tools of their time. And against the United States Air Force in 2026, it has no more meaningful agency than a medieval castle wall against a main battle tank. The question is not whether it loses. The question is whether anyone survives long enough to surrender. 17 million dead in the history we know. In this one, 4 days of precision air campaign. A ceasefire signed in September rather than November. 2 more months of the war's final phase erased before they happen. The 100 Days Offensive never runs its course. The influenza pandemic, which kills more people than the war itself and spreads partly through the movement of military forces across Europe, that timeline changes too. History is not a single thread. Pull one and everything shifts. But here is what does not change. In any version of this scenario, in any war across any century, in any calculus of human conflict, the men in those trenches, French, British, German, American, they were not abstractions. They were not variables in a strategic equation. They were Heinrich Bauer, looking up at a sky that had no name for what it contained. They were men who deserved a world that found a better way. We have the better way. We built it. The question history keeps asking, and never quite answers, is why we always seem to need the war first. Remember, this is just a what-if thought, so nothing in this video is serious. See you in the next one.